Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 15. Can you believe we are closing in on the end? Congratulations to all of you that have made it this far. I know that it's been a long semester. It's been an interesting one, better than the previous couple. But I hope that you're all doing well and continuing to push strong to the end. So you know all the stuff. Whatever. We're almost done. Just do the work. I do want to give one thing, bit of advice, which is, like on your reflection observations, there's still a tendency for some of you to just either try to wing it, or try to just go off of the introduction. The introductions usually just set the chapter up, the introduction of the actual chapter. And so, you want to make sure that you're actually getting into the materials so that you can answer things properly. And again, always use examples, songs, artists, all of that stuff to help support your argument. Because we're getting near the end here, and every point's going to count. And I don't tip people up to the next grade. I've given some extra credit stuff, and I've done enough. So if you're 2 points shy of the next letter grade, you're 2 points shy of the next letter grade. So do the work so that you can land where you need to land solidly. So this coming chapter is on, we have 2 weeks left, and both of these have just one chapter each. So that means one quiz, one reflection observation, one discussion. Also, again, make sure you're getting your discussions in on time. You're making thoughtful posts. They actually are engaging somehow, and put some effort into it. So this chapter is on pop and alternative styles. And so, if you think about going way back to the beginning of the class when we were talking about, before there was really, much in terms of recordings, you have, ragtime and the blues and, folk and country and all those things back to the late 1800s, early 1900s and all of that. So we've watched everything move, and a lot of this music would fall under popular music. And again, when you put it in the context of the 4 types of music that there are, which is cultural ritual music, folk music, art/classical music, and popular music, pretty much everything that we study in this class does fit under popular music. But then within that context, there is something that we call pop. And pop is usually pretty straightforward, kind of middle of the road, it's appealing to the largest number of folks. And so there's always been pop music that's been going along, but things shift a lot in the 80s, and a lot of that again is because of MTV. And remember that date, I keep hitting it, August 1st, 1981. And that was huge game changer in the music world. We've seen a number of them because we had TV shows and variety shows and other things that would feature music or have music on it. But to have a channel that had 24-hour music videos was groundbreaking and revolutionary and changed the landscape. And of course, as we know, it only lasted for a little while, and then they started doing other programming, and then MTV really went down to the point where, with MTV, you half the time you wouldn't even have music on there, and they had to change things and change them up. And I remember there was, like several different ones, and one of the only ones that you could find music videos on was MTV Tres. And so, but you go back to the 80s and it was a big deal, and it was really huge. I mean, it was exciting. It was fun. When you would go to parties, people wouldn't be playing records or CDs really. I mean, CDs weren't even really out yet. So CDs didn't show up on the scene till 83. And into 83, 84, 85 is when they really became big. But it was not uncommon to go to a house, go to a party, and MTV would be on, and because you didn't know what video was going to come next, you didn't know what was going to happen, and so it really impacted the music industry in a significant way. Some artists that were already around and were very well-known or popular didn't necessarily make the transition to MTV. And a lot of that is because, MTV is a visual media, and what you looked like and what the videos looked like, your fashion, everything were big. Those were big factors. And so Some of the old folks didn't really make the transition, and it's always a young game anyways. Pop music is always a young game, or almost always a young game. And so you had some that did make the transition. So you'll learn about a couple of those, Michael Jackson and Prince in particular. And then you have some that were really the product of, maybe they existed before MTV, but were it not for MTV, they would have been huge. So a lot of the new wave bands, bands like Duran Duran and Culture Club and things like that were coming around, coming out of the Blitz scene in the 80s, or early 80s, late 70s, it started to evolve, and then MTV was right place, right time. And then you have some artists who became successful because of MTV. And a perfect example of this that will be covered in this chapter is Madonna. Madonna is, the way I refer to it, is a post-MTV creation. So she was able to show up, and because MTV was there, and Madonna had the whole package, right? She's not a great singer. She never was a great singer, but she could dance. She had great choreography. She had a built-in audience because she really catered to kind of the gay scene, if you will, and built this audience that came out of the clubs. But she had a look about her. She had attitude. She knew how to use controversy. And I'm hoping that the reason, if you just saw me reach up, was that I got a thing came up that said switch to low power mode. So I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit, which is good for you because I don't want my phone to die, and hopefully everything is still going well. It says I'm still recording. So Madonna, though, was a post-MTV creation. She was right there. MTV was going on. She was making videos, getting songs out, and that's how she was getting exposure. And it's important to think about, we talked about live music, and we talked about jukeboxes, and then we talked about the radio. And the thing about MTV was that MTV was national programming. So if you were watching MTV, everybody was seeing the same stuff at the same time. So radio was regional. What was popular in Southern California could be different than what was popular in Omaha, which could be different than what was popular in Detroit, which was different than what was popular in Atlanta, which was different than what was popular in New York City. It was very regional. MTV was national. So that meant if you got on MTV, everybody in the country, and then eventually the world, was seeing what you were doing. And so when Madonna shows up, on MTV, everybody gets to see Madonna, and everybody learns about it, and you like it or you don't, and then radio would pick up from there. Now you have somebody like Prince and Michael Jackson. They were already successful before MTV. Prince, his first album came out in 1979. He was actually 18 years old. The label fudged it, said he was 15 or 17. Michael Jackson, of course, was famous because he was part of the Jackson 5. And so he was famous as a little kid, came up through Motown, but then went to CBS, became a very successful solo artist. His first album, Off the Wall, came out in 79, his first solo album. And so they were already established, but MTV comes out, and it was a perfect medium, particularly for Michael Jackson. Now, Prince made videos, and Prince, utilized that, but Michael Jackson really dove headfirst into that. And so he made videos, but the huge game changer was the album Thriller. So you're going to learn about Thriller because Thriller had videos coming out with this, and there was controversy because early on in MTV, they didn't play a whole lot of black artists, and there was a big battle to get Michael Jackson on there. But when you have, Billie Jean, and then Beat It, and then, of course, Thriller, which was a long-form video, if you watch the whole thing, and I have it in your materials, and I watch it all, because it's like a little short movie. Michael Jackson was a huge pioneer of videos. In fact, I would say Michael Jackson and Peter Gabriel were really probably two of the main ones. David Bowie, some other people, but really Michael Jackson and Peter Gabriel were the two artists that really pushed the music video as an art form, not just as a promotional commercial for a song. They actually told stories and were inventive with the way that they created those. So Michael Jackson, his videos explode. A Thriller becomes the highest selling album of all time. I don't know if it still is. It might very well still be up there. When streaming came on, the charts changed and things were figured in a different way. But and then Prince, was coming up. He was having videos coming out for things like Little Red Corvette. But in 1984, Purple Rain came out, and of course it was a movie, and there were videos, and all of that exploded. So you have that. You have a style of music called New Romanticism that you're going to learn about. I'm really going to go quick because I just got another warning, which is that Blitz scene that I mentioned that came out of England, and you have Culture Club and Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet and other artists, and they were also very much about fashion. So it lended perfectly to MTV as well. And a lot of those artists, those new, what we would call kind of the second wave of new wave that developed, really became famous because of MTV. And then you have an alternative scene. So you have popular music, you have the new romantic scene, and then you have what we call alternative rock, which means alternative to the popular. And alternative always changes. But really, this is when the alternative scene started. And here is where you have bands like U2, REM, The Smiths. They came out of that scene. They had videos out, but they really rose to fame because of college radio. And we learned about punk before. I don't know that I talked a whole lot about this, but with this whole punk and new wave scene that came out, this was really the resurgence of, independent artists and independent labels, like we learned way back with Sun Records and Chess Records and all of that. A lot of the punk bands started, and there was independent labels starting out. This is where the indie band scene really rekindled and started. So I think that's it. I'm going to go quick because I don't know how soon this is going to die. Of course, there are questions buried in here. Make sure that you get those all done. Again, all those points count. They all make a difference. Have a great week and do good work. See you soon. Bye.